I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here today presenting. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this will work because I do have a quick little presentation. I wanted to talk a little bit first about our mission at Rose Meadow, because I do think that we're a unique organization. So here at Rose Meadow, our mission is to enhance each resident's quality of life. What we do here is we provide long-term quality, compassionate care to individuals that have acquired brain injury, spinal cord injury, and other neurological diseases or disorders like ALS or Huntington's. I apologize because this presentation is on auto advance, so I'm going to try to back it up if it moves ahead on me. Specifically, the individuals here, like I said, they have acquired brain injuries, which is interesting because what that means is that the injury typically occurred post-adolescence. So these are individuals that for the majority of their lives live normal and even in some cases extraordinary lives until circumstances intervened and they sustained a life-altering traumatic brain injury. Our residents can also have diseases of the spinal cord or other neurological diseases. Typically, the more typical ones that we see are diseases such as ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and also Huntington's as well. So as you can probably imagine, if you're familiar with these types of diseases, they do have adult onset, unfortunately, and they are absolutely life-altering. We have 3 facilities, which you'll see in just a second. They're all privately owned and operated. We've been in business for 25 years, and all 3 of our properties are located in New Boston, New Hampshire. We are a rural setting. However, I believe that the rural setting actually allows us to provide care to our residents in a therapeutic manner. They currently have lots of room to maneuver, both inside and outside of the house. So let me actually just take this off of presenter view for a minute and just kind of expand this. I just don't want it to keep advancing. So great. So this slide that you have in front of you, you can actually see our 3 properties. So we have the first property on the left is Rose Meadow Farm. That's our oldest facility. We actually just celebrated our 25th anniversary this past February. And it was the farm that opened up first. It was basically a rehabilitated or refurnished farmhouse. So you'll see in the next slide with the pictures, we definitely have animals on site, which is interesting for both our staff and our residents. We have chickens, cats, and a little Shetland pony. So that was our first property with the farm. They can accommodate up to 11 residents. They currently have 10, and they're all private rooms at all 3 properties. The second property to the right there was also the second property that was established. That was probably the mid-90s when the garden was built. It is much larger. We just put an addition on the property, so currently we have 16 residents with us at Rose Meadow Garden, and that's where I currently sit in New Boston as well. The newest addition to the Rose Meadow family is the Acres property, and they opened up around 2015. They're also a 16-bed facility located in New Boston. I always say that the garden and the acres, pretty much in the spectrum of New Boston. So the garden is at one end of the town and the acres is all the way at the other. But as you can tell from the photos, they're really spacious, large properties. And the physical property where they sit on covers a lot of ground as well. So, for better or for worse, we are in a very rural setting, but I think for our residents, it provides that safety and security that they need while they're here. The current openings here, let me see if I can switch this over. So we do have several positions available. We have, it's still going to continue to advance. I apologize for that. So the primary role that we're recruiting for currently is our direct care role. And the direct care role is interesting because we're able to employ individuals who are licensed. So if you hold a license, the role is equivalent to an LNA. If you don't hold a license, we do train you up to those same standards, and they're called life skills facilitators. So what's really kind of cool and unique about our program is because of what we do and because we do have LPNs and RNs on site with us, our immediate caregivers are essentially performing the same tasks as a certified LNA, but they don't have to be licensed through the state. They just have to be able to pass a criminal records check with the state and also make sure that their name doesn't show up on one of the state's registries, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then because we do have that supervision on site, they're able to still provide care. So the license is definitely not required, but it is welcome because LNAs obviously kind of come in right out of the gate already knowing how to support our residents properly. We assist primarily with activities of daily living or ADLs, but I always like to kind of tell our LNAs that are out there that our population is clinically interesting. So due to the nature of a brain injury, because the central nervous system is involved, there's a whole host of other medical circumstances that accompany that. So many of our residents have G tubes and J tubes. One of our residents is on a ventilator. That typically only comes into play on the overnight shift. He's able to breathe normally during the day, but on the overnight shift, there is some ventilator exposure as well. But obviously we have the nurses to kind of support our staff. So there's a lot that goes on clinically with our residents, but our caregivers primarily are helping our residents get ready in the morning, providing some activity support throughout the day, assisting them with feeding, and then obviously making sure that if there is any medical equipment involved or a supportive device like a G-tube or a J-tube, that they're keeping that clean, free of debris, taking vitals, and alerting the nurses on site in the event that their condition does start to change or shift a little bit. We have some openings between the three programs. We have openings across all three shifts. So not every program has, shifts open on first or second or third, but between the three, we do typically have openings across all three. So first shift runs from 7 to 3, second shift from 3 to 11, and then the overnight shift is from 11 to 7. The greatest need is for full-time positions, just to kind of help better support our administrators with scheduling. But we do welcome part-time roles and even per diem. All of the part-time and full-time roles have an alternating weekend commitment. But the nice thing I think about the part-time shift is, that's sort of where that commitment starts. So if folks are in school or in college, a lot of times a part-time shift is a great option because the only commitment required is that you work 8 hours every other weekend. So it works nicely with individuals who are attending college, particularly nursing students. We are currently offering a signing bonus for our full-time positions, and just for a reference value, this slide does kind of give you a sense for the pay range. The easiest thing to kind of take away from our pay range structure is we pay based on years of experience. So when you're looking there at the range, the starting range would be for someone with no experience. The outer range is for someone with typically 10 or more. And then the next thing that we look at is, are they licensed or unlicensed? And then finally, which shift are they applying for? So that's how our range is developed and designed in terms of when we communicate our offers. For the LPNs, it's a little bit different. We also only currently have one opening for LPNs, and it is a part-time position. We could probably make it a full-time position for the right candidate. But right now it is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every other weekend on the 11 to 7. The pay rate can vary quite significantly for our LPNs, but it typically starts at around 23 or 24 an hour for a new grad. And then we do have one kind of miscellaneous opening. This is very atypical for our property, but I wanted to take advantage of the career fair and go ahead and announce it anyway. We do have a janitorial or custodial / maintenance person. That's a full-time position, Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. And that would typically pay between 18 and 20 an hour. The pictures that you kind of see scrolling across the top are from our farm property. So you can see it's kind of a, a cute little place to work. We've got the picture of the cat sleeping. The recreation room is the photo in the middle with the pool table and the TV. And then over there on the far right is just a group activity that they did up there to do a little ice cream social. This slide that shows the benefits, these photos are taken from our garden property. So you can see our kitchen, a sample bathroom. All of our residents receive a bath in a Whirlpool jetted tub that promotes good skin integrity for them. And then the final photo there is, you can't really see it because it's small, but it's our staff and our residents. Every year we participate in a walk by the sea for individuals with adult disabilities. The benefits that we offer are listed on this slide here. The biggest one, I think, is the opportunity to make an impact. Before I round out the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about how COVID has affected our operations. But what I really want to say here is the biggest impact that it's had is that our staff more than ever have really provided a critical source of companionship for our residents who have not otherwise been able to get out in the community during this difficult time. So I think now more than ever, our caregivers are really on the front lines and have become a really good social support system for our residents here. And I do think that it's made a difference in the quality of their lives even through COVID. Other benefits it's a full benefits package, particularly for our full-time staff. So we offer medical, dental, and vision, and that does have a cost sharing. So the employee pays some, the company pays some, but the premiums for a single individual are very, very affordable. The company pays in full life, short-term, and long-term disability benefits, as well as giving all of our employees access to an employee assistance program. After 1 year of service, full-time employees are eligible for tuition reimbursement and vacation time. Full-time and part-time employees are also eligible for an earned time off program where you accrue hours off that are paid. And that starts from day one of employment, which is kind of nice. And then full and part-time employees are also eligible for our 401k plan. And for our full-time folks, there is a match that starts after 1 year of service. So it's a pretty comprehensive benefits package that we're able to offer, even though we are a small privately owned set of facilities. If you are interested in applying in any of these positions, there's several ways to do it. In addition to the career fair site, you can also go directly to our website at rosemeadowgroup.com. There should be a big button right on the homepage that actually says job opportunities, and you can click that. It asks you to fill out a quick, online template. So even if you don't have a resume, sometimes the website can be a really convenient way to initiate contact with me. I do get notified anytime someone submits an inquiry through the website. If you wanted to email me directly, you can feel free to do so. So my email is jblock@rosemeadowgroup.com, or you can just give me a call. I try to make myself, accessible in a number of ways, particularly to anyone who's looking for employment. So my telephone number and extension are listed there. All applicants do have to be able to successfully undergo a criminal records check. The check, according to the state of nursing regulations, has to be free of felony convictions. We prefer it to also be free of misdemeanor convictions, but felony convictions will disqualify an applicant. If you have a misdemeanor conviction, I always say it's better to kind of, disclose that up front. If you don't want to, we will find out anyway. What we typically do for a misdemeanor is kind of look at how long ago it occurred and what the nature of it was. So I wouldn't say that it's an automatic disqualifier, but it is, you're able to move through the process in a much quicker way if your record is also free of misdemeanors as well. In addition to that, we require 2 to 3 personal references, as well as clearance from the New Hampshire Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services. So that's just basically a state database where there, if you ever did have an instance where you were found to be guilty of elderly abuse or neglect, your name would show up on that database. And that unfortunately is a disqualifier as well, just because our population is so vulnerable. I did want to, before I close out the presentation, talk a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted us. The photos at the top I did want to include. These photos are all used with permission of our staff and our residents as well. We have a great marketing team that makes sure that I'm nice and compliant during these online fairs. So all of these individuals have given us permission to kind of use their faces. And I wanted to kind of share them with you today because, as I mentioned before, the greatest impact that COVID-19 has had on our residents is because they have not been able to go outside in the community. We've been very, very strict and stringent about our COVID-19 protocols here. And as of today's date, I always knock on wood. I'm really happy to report that we've been able to successfully keep the virus away from our residents and in turn our staff. That's not to say that none of our staff have ever contracted the virus, but they've contracted it outside the facility and have not brought it inside. So we've been really fortunate to date to not have an outbreak. But we also understand and recognize that it's going to be a really long process. And it's something that we're committed to across all levels of the organization. We really need help during COVID-19 more than we ever have before. Our residents are considered medically stable but fragile. So if COVID-19 were to ever sort of make it past these doors, the impact on our residents could be detrimental. During the peak of the pandemic, we took a proactive step and moved our employees to 12-hour shifts. That worked to minimize their contact with the residents, and it also reduced the number of times that they were required to enter the building to provide care over the course of a given week. Our goal, though, since COVID cases are still, holding pretty steady, I guess, across the state, our staff has worked really hard. So one of the reasons we're recruiting right now is we do intend to migrate back to 8-hour shifts by mid to late September. And we want to make sure that we have adequate staff to start resuming normal care routines as well. So we're doing the recruiting and also the training for those 8-hour shifts now, just to get a jump start, because it does typically take 1 to 2 weeks to clear a candidate, and then another week or so to proceed through the training. So before you know it, September is going to be here. And we'd like to be able to start that for our staff as soon as possible. We do maintain adequate supplies of PPE. We've been really fortunate there again. And those supplies are consistently maintained. Senior management regularly advocates for continued supplies just to make sure that our staff are able to stay protected and comfortable and keep our residents safe as well. Like most facilities, we also do daily temperature checks. We also do check-in questions. Our check-in questions are probably a little bit more thorough, but we work with our staff to kind of help them to flag certain things that they may or may not have done outside of work that might create a little bit of an exposure risk. And we also rolled out a flexible leave policy, which allows our employees to, be paid in the event that we do opt to make the decision to keep them off of the schedule for a bit if we determine that they may have had an elevated exposure risk. And between those measures, so far, it's worked pretty well. Our senior management team attends weekly guidance calls with other long-term care providers, and we follow all recommended guidelines set forth by the Public Health Department. As I mentioned before, we've almost become a true lifeline for our residents, particularly when we were completely closed to visitors. So it's really just important that our staff and our residents continue to be safe. the last picture that I wanted to kind of leave you with is just a snapshot of what the interior of the house looks like. This is at our Rose Meadow Acres property. It is the newest, so I always like to kind of show it off. It's beautiful. You can see there's a massive living room slash parlor area where under normal circumstances we could receive guests and visitors. There is a fully enclosed sun deck, which is the second picture on the right, that looks like a living room, but it's actually really just a Four Seasons room where our residents can actually be out and experience the outdoors, even in inclement weather. And then a sample bedroom, just kind of one section of it, and then a photo of our staff and one of our former residents at the Acres property. So that concludes my presentation, and I will transition it back over to Mariah to see if anyone has any questions.
Joanna, thank you so much. You did awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate you guys doing this.